Hi and welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. Now in this video we will tell you what to do with your indoor tropical plants when winter is coming. And we will give you 8 different factors that you need to consider to help your plants. Now if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do and hit the bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps this channel a lot. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where you can get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes just a little bit more. And of course, please share with your friends as well. Now starting off with the first factor, and that is of course which type of plant you have. If you have a ficus plant or if you have a CZ plant, there is a huge difference on how those will react when winter is coming. And one thing you can do is of course to check out all of our all you need to know videos, because in those videos we tell you if those plants are sensitive to winter or to cold. Another thing is of course that you can make sure to ask in your local shop where you bought your plant if there is anything you need to consider when winter is coming. Factor number 2 is of course dormancy. Now, most tropical indoor plants actually go dormant when winter is coming. Now, we have a video that tells you everything you need to know about dormancy. We'll put a link to that over there so you can go and check that out. But dormancy affects the plant and how you should take care of it in winter. So make sure to watch that video. Now, the third factor is temperature. And when I say that, you might think, well, I have the same temperature in my house all year round. The outside weather doesn't affect that. But it actually does, because when it gets cold outside, you have a heating system that goes on to regulate that heat indoors. And that actually affects your plant. One of the things can be drafts. Now, drafts can have a real negative effect on most plants, because you have that very cold draft which affects the heating system within the plant, how it opens and closes those stomatas to regulate their heat. So if you get a lot of drafts during winter, cold drafts, this can actually stress the plant. Another thing is that your window might even have frost on it, which means that the window itself gets to be quite cold. Even if it's warm inside, your plants could be standing next to the window. And if that window is really, really cold, that will also affect your plants. So make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, on the other hand, we have drafts and we have cold windows. On the other hand, we have the radiators. If you have radiators in your home, when it gets cold, they kick alive and they produce a lot of heat. And usually those radiators are underneath the windowsill where you have your plant. And this will also affect the plant. It will stress the plant, because when it gets that very high heat on the leaves, it will have to start to regulate that by trying to drink more water, trying to preserve that water inside of the plant to regulate that heat. So if you have a plant that is sensitive to radiator heat, then move that plant somewhere. You can just move it maybe a couple of feet, or let's say half a meter into the room, and you will get away from that direct heat from the radiator. So that is one way to just make sure that it doesn't get too much heat. Now, another thing to consider is, of course, if you have a lot of your plants in your kitchen, for instance. The oven is another thing that actually can give away a lot of heat when you open and close the oven. So if you have plants near to your oven or inside your kitchen, make sure to check the plants as well to see that they will not get stressed. Now, one way they can show that heat stress is by their wilting a little bit. Even though you can feel that they are a little bit moist in the soil, they're actually starting to wilter. And that is because it cannot regulate that heat. It is too hot. Another thing can be open fireplaces as well. Never put your indoor plants close to your fireplace, because the same thing will happen. The plant cannot regulate its heat within inside. It doesn't have a heart like we have that pumps around everything. It actually regulates the heat with the help of the water. By opening and closing those stomatas in the leaves, it regulates how much water is transporting inside of here. If it gets too hot, it cannot do that. Now, the last thing about temperature is something that we have more and more of in our houses, and that is electrical devices. It can be laptops, TV appliances. All electrical devices gives away a little bit of heat, and it can also alter the humidity in your house. So make sure to see that if you have a room that you have a lot of electrical devices in, some plants might not like it there, and that can be one of the reasons. Factor number 4 is light. Because when winter is coming, at least here in Sweden, we get a lot less light. The days get shorter, the nights get longer, and we have other things as well. Like here in Sweden, we get a lot more clouds and rain and snow, and that also means less light for your plant. Now, this is one of the reasons that triggers dormancy in the plant. But you have to consider this. So if you have a plant that needs a lot of light, maybe you should move that plant from, let's say, a west or east facing window to a southern facing window in winter, because that could give it that extra part of light that it needs in wintertime. Another thing concerning light is that you need to clean your windows. The windows are already reflecting a lot of the UV lights that the plant wants and needs. But if you have a window that is extremely filthy, that will also hinder a lot of that light that the plant needs. So make sure that your windows are clean. This is such an easy way to just give more lights in winter to your plants. Now, lastly, concerning light, you can of course add some grow lights to your plants. Now, what we recommend you to do is that you use either some form of LED lighting or fluorescent lighting. This is the best way to help your plants. And when you add grow lights, make sure that they are reasonably close to your plants, because a grow light that is standing in the other side of the room will not help your plants a lot. The recommended distance that you should have from your grow lights to your plants is approximately a foot, 30 centimeter up to half a meter. When it goes beyond that, you will not give it that much extra light. So make sure that it's quite close to your plants if you add it. And also add the grow lights during the day to help the plant when it's active. Do not add the light during nighttime, because the dormancy is not only concerning winter, it's also concerning days and nights. Plants go a little bit dormant during the night, and it needs that resting period during the night. So make sure that you add a lot of light during the day and not during the night. Almost like us humans, we need our sleep, we need our rest. It's the same thing with plants, just let it rest during the night. Now, the fifth factor is humidity. Now, this is a big deal, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, here in Sweden. When we get cold winters outside of our houses, we get a much lower humidity indoors because of the heating system in our houses. Here in Sweden, we have a humidity that is somewhere in between 40 to 50% during summer. But in wintertime, it goes down to the low 30s, even down into 20% of humidity. And this is a big stress factor for any plant. What happens then is that all of the water inside of your pot, if it is just 20% humidity outside here, and you have 100% humidity inside your pot, that water wants to evaporate into the air as fast as possible because it wants to level out that difference in humidity. And what the water will do is actually, some of it will evaporate from the soil, but most of it will evaporate. It will go into the roots, up the stem, out to the leaves, and evaporate straight from the leaves. And this stresses the plant extremely because it has to close all of the stomatas on the leaves, those small windows that can open and close to regulate all of that water inside of the plant. It needs to close it and keep it closed to be able to sustain water inside of the plant. So when that humidity goes down, it gets really, really stressed. So if we can help our plants to get a higher humidity in winter, this is a big plus. Now you can do that in different ways. You could add a humidifier in your room that stands somewhere and just adds humidity to your room. But that costs quite a lot of water. So that costs quite a lot of money. So an easier way is just to either you can take all of your plants and just bundle them together. Because when they're standing close together, they're actually helping each other to have higher humidity. Because all of that water that is evaporating from the plants help the plants next to it. So this is one way. Just keep in mind that if you get pests on one of the plants, it will spread quite easily to all of them if you have them close together. But it is a very simple way to help that humidity. Another way is to add if you have your plants on your windowsill or on the floor, you can add some trays of water next to the plant. And the big thing here is that if you add a tray that has a bigger surface area of water, that actually means that more water will evaporate from that tray. So the bigger tray you add, it doesn't need to be deeper, it just needs to have a bigger surface area. The more water will evaporate and will help your plants that is standing around that tray. And if you stand that tray on your windowsill, the radiator heat from underneath will actually help that evaporation from the tray as well, so it will evaporate quicker. Just make sure to fill up with water as soon as it goes away. Now another way to increase humidity is of course by misting or spraying or showering your plants with water. This is the most commonly used way to add that humidity to our plants. Our experience is though that if you mist your plants with or shower your plants, do that quite often. If you mist it, then you should mist it almost every day or every other day. Because our experience is that if you only mist sometimes, you're actually hindering your plant to getting used to that low humidity. Because a lot of plants actually start to lose a couple of leaves in 2 times a year, when winter is coming and when spring is coming. And what actually happens is that when the radiators go on and you have that difference in humidity, you can lose some leaves on your plant because it gets stressed. But it gets used to that stress. So if you start to mist it every day, it's getting used to that higher humidity again. But if you only mist it sometimes, you're misting your plant and just a couple of minutes or hours, that goes away and it gets low humidity again. Then it can get stressed and shocked again. So if it's too long in between those mistings, it can actually be a negative thing for your plants. Because we have found that they get used to that low humidity. And when they have gotten used to that, you shouldn't affect that too much by misting it sometimes. So our experience and our recommendation, if you mist your plants, do it regularly, do it often. then it's a very good thing. Now I know a lot of people are afraid of misting their plants because they've heard that it can get fungus problems, bacterial problems, and so on. Yes, misting can do that, but it only does that, or usually does that, in summertime, when you have high humidity, high heat, and you start to mist your plants. Then you can get fungus problems. But in wintertime, when you have lower heat and lower humidity, you won't get that problem. So you can mist your plants in wintertime, and that is usually not a problem. Factor number 6 is water. Now this is the thing that I think most people know about, and that is we need to cut down in our water in winter. And but there are a couple of factors within that watering you need to consider, and one of the things is take a look at what type of potting medium you're using. Are you using a standard potting soil? It means that that soil has a very high water holding capacity. It can absorb a lot of water. But if you have a potting medium that is maybe a mixture of soil and pumice and perlite, for instance, then it cannot hold as much water, and maybe you should water it almost as often and give almost as much water as you're doing in summertime. So the potting medium actually regulates quite a lot how much water you should give. Another thing is pot size. If you have a very small pot or if you have a big pot, that means that that big pot can actually hold more water than the small pot. So that is also a factor you need to consider. Now, I just recommend you to try and let the soil dry out a little bit more during winter than you do during summer. Now, we have a video that tells you on how to do this and what to think about it. It's called Why Do Most Plants Want to Dry Out in Between Watering? And we'll put a link to that so you can go and check that out as well. Now, the last thing about water, as I said, you should usually cut down on how much you water and also on the frequency, and all is depending on the potting medium and the size of the pot. But another thing can also be that more water evaporates when you have lower humidity in winter, which means that the soil surface will dry out quicker in wintertime than it does in summertime. So if you're used to just feeling your soil maybe 1 inch down and see that, okay, it's dry, I need to water again in summer, you need to feel a little bit deeper into your pot in winter, because the soil surface will dry out quicker, but you could still have a lot of moisture and water further down in the pot. So make sure that you check your soil deeper in wintertime than in summer. Factor number 7 is fertilizing your plants. Now, most indoor plants go dormant, as I said before, during winter. It's not as active in the wintertime. That also means that you should cut down on fertilizing your plants. We do not fertilize our plants from late October till the start of March. So during all of those winter months, we do not fertilize at all. And that is also our recommendation to you. However, there are some plants that actually are active even in wintertime. So what should you do with those plants? Well, our recommendation is that you should cut down on the fertilizer. Keep adding fertilizer if you see that it's very active. It's still growing, it's still showing you that it's energy positive. But dilute that fertilizer more. Add more water to the fertilizer so you give a little bit less during winter. And if you see that it stops growing, it goes a little bit dormant, then stop fertilizing. Just let it rest, because the risk here is that if you continue giving fertilizer when the plant is dormant or when it stops being active, you could give too much fertilizer. And what you're actually doing is that you're giving too much salt to your plants and you will harm the roots. So our recommendation is do not give fertilizer to dormant plants in winter. Now the last factor is pests. Pests can be a real problem in winter. Now the reason is that the plant is going dormant, you have lower humidity, the plant is more stressed. This actually means that they are more prone to getting pests. So if there is any time of year that you need to check your plant regularly and often, it's during winter to see if you have any pests on them. If you see, take action directly. Use some form of pesticide from your local shop, follow the instructions, or you can mix up a soap and water mixture and spray on the plants to get rid of those pests. But do it quickly and act directly. Because since the plant is dormant, it will actually hurt the plants more during winter than during the summer months. Because when the plant is active, it's growing, it's energy positive, it doesn't really care that much about the pests during summer. But in winter, when it's dormant, it's stressed, it has problems, perhaps it has problems, then the pest will be a big problem. So act directly and do something about it. Now, to quickly summarize all of these 8 factors is that when winter is coming, most indoor plants go a little bit dormant. You have fluctuations in temperature, in humidity, you have less light during the day, you need to water less, you need to be more proactive with your plants. You need to stop fertilizing and you need to check for pests. If you do all of these things and follow the instructions in this video, you will probably not have any problems during winter. And when spring is coming, when you get more light, when you get higher humidity, your plants will show you that they are ready for a new season, they will start to grow and just start to flourish again. So I hope this video will help you during winter. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps this channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the bell. Do that and hit the bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. And like us on Facebook and Instagram to get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes just a little bit more. Now until next time, hej då!